The drill sergeant doubled gravity. The human didn't notice. HFY Sci-Fi story. The drill sergeant doubled the gravity. The human didn't notice. Not even a flinch. No grunt. No stagger. No wide eyes scanning the room for help. Just a slow exhale through the nose. And then, she did another push-up. That's when the Galactic Defense Academy realized something was very, very wrong. The Velthari Military Academy sat at the edge of the Caloran system. 40 years old, carved from asteroid rock. Polished to something close to pride, it trained the best soldiers from 43 species. Keth warriors from the lava moons. Drovni scouts who could see in total darkness. Oroki heavy infantry whose bones were denser than steel. Every recruit who graduated was considered elite. Every recruit. Except the humans. Humans had only been admitted to the academy 3 years ago, part of some diplomatic agreement nobody at the academy had asked for. Instructor Velkarin had read their file. He'd read it twice. Then he'd made a note in the margin. The note read, "Fragile. Monitor closely. Do not crush." The new intake arrived on a cold rotation cycle. 42 recruits, 7 species, 1 human. Her name was Mara Calloway. She was tall for a human, not tall by Academy standards. By Academy standards, she was below average in height, below average in mass, and, according to the intake physical, running on a skeleton made of something the medical officer described as concerningly calcium-dependent. The Keth recruit standing next to her was named Barrow. He was 3 times her weight and had a natural armored ridge running down his spine. He looked at her the way you look at something you expect to break. "You are the human?" he asked. "Last time I checked," she said, "you were very small. You're very tall. I guess we're both dealing with something." Barrow didn't know what to say to that. He filed it under strange and moved on. Instructor Velkarin stood at the front of the intake hall. He was Dravni, 7 feet of lean, pale muscle and 4 compound eyes that could track movement across an entire chamber simultaneously. He had trained recruits for 19 years. He had broken recruits for 19 years. It was, in his own words, a fulfilling career. "Welcome to Velthari Academy," he said. "You are not soldiers. You are not warriors. You are not even recruits yet." He walked the line slowly. "You are raw material. My job is to determine which of you can become something useful, and my job is made easier by one simple fact." He stopped at the center of the line. "Most of you will not survive the first week of training." A few recruits shifted. Barrow stood straighter. Mara Calloway tilted her head slightly. "Most of you will request early termination of your enrollment by day 3, Velkarin continued, "and I will let you go, because the galaxy does not need soldiers who cannot endure." His 4 eyes swept the line. "Training begins at 4th bell. The gravity in all training bays will be set to 1.4 standard. Standard is Keth norm. Those of you from lighter gravity worlds," his eyes found Mara, "will find adaptive support equipment in your quarters." Mara nodded once. Velkarin made a note. "We'll need monitoring." 4th bell arrived. The training bay was a long chamber with gray composite flooring and walls lined with resistance equipment. The ceiling panels glowed a flat, even white. At 1.4 standard gravity, most of the alien recruits were already slightly hunched, not struggling, just adjusted, carrying the extra weight in their posture the way you carry a familiar burden. Velkarin announced the first exercise, 50 push-ups, standard form, hands shoulder width, chest to floor. "Begin." The recruits dropped. Barrow went down hard and fast, the rhythm of a natural. The Oroki recruits were slower, their dense frames built more for endurance than pace. The Dravni recruits moved with precision. And Mara Calloway dropped into position and began. She didn't use the adaptive support equipment. Velkarin noticed that immediately. He walked to her position. "Recruit, where's your adaptive harness?" "Didn't bring it, sir." "The adaptive harness is mandatory for low-gravity origin recruits." "I don't need it, sir." He looked at her. 4 eyes, all of them focused. "Recruit 1.4 standard is nearly 1.3 times your homeworld gravity." "Yes, sir. You will fatigue early." "Understood, sir. You will likely injure yourself." "Unlikely, sir." There was a long pause. "Continue," he said. She continued. She hit 50 push-ups at roughly the same time as Barrow. Faster than most of the Oraki. Faster than 2 of the Drovni. Velkaran stood still for a moment. He pulled up his datapad and checked her intake file again. Homeworld. Earth. Gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared. Standard equivalent, 0.98. He looked back at her. She was standing at rest position, breathing normally. Not normally. Slightly elevated, but not what he expected. He looked at Barrow, who was also standing, but whose breath was coming in the deep, controlled pulls of genuine effort. He looked at the Dravni recruits, who were good, but whose arms had the slight tremor of muscle working against resistance. He looked at Mara. She didn't have a tremor. He made another note. Anomaly. Continue observation. The second exercise was a 4-kilometer run. The track was set in an outer ring of the station. The gravity field there was fixed at 1.4 standard throughout. Velkaran stood at the start line and watched them go. Keth recruits were built for short, explosive movement. They led for the first kilometer. Dravni had long, efficient strides. They settled into the middle pace easily. Oraki were slow, but they didn't stop. Dense muscle. Dense bone. Built for grinding. And then there was Mara. She started at the back. Velkaran expected her to stay there. By kilometer 2, she had passed half the field. He checked the track display. Consistent pace. No acceleration bursts. Just a steady, unbroken stride. By kilometer 3, she had passed the Keth, who had spent their burst early. By kilometer 4, she crossed the finish at second place, behind only a Dravni recruit named Saris, who had run this distance in training before. Velkaran stared at the display. He looked at her time. He looked at her baseline intake data. He called over his assistant, a young Velthari named Kornek. "Kornek, check the gravity field in the outer ring. Something may be miscalibrated." Kornek checked. "Sir, gravity field reads nominal. 1.4 standard throughout." "Check again." "Sir, check again." Kornek checked again. "Nominal, sir." Velkaran looked at Mara, who was standing at the finish line, hands on her hips, taking long, slow breaths. She was sweating. But she was not done. That was the difference he couldn't explain. She was sweating like someone who had worked hard. But she looked like someone who could go again. That evening, Velkaran sent a query to the Academy's Xenobiology department. Human recruit. Physical performance 23% above projected baseline at 1.4 standard gravity. No adaptive equipment used. Request consultation. The response came back within an hour. From Dr. Aaron Sell, a Velthari xenobiologist with 3 advanced degrees and a specialty in non-standard species physiology. Her response was short. "That's unusual. I'll observe tomorrow's session." Day 2. The training bay at 1.4 standard. New exercise, resistance carry. Each recruit lifted a weighted pack corresponding to 60% of their body mass and walked a 1-kilometer loop. Continuously. For 30 minutes. Aaron Sell stood at the observation rail above the bay, datapad in hand. Velkaran stood beside her. Below them, the recruits loaded their packs. Mara's pack, at 60% of her body mass, was the lightest in the room by raw weight. But 60% is 60%. Velkaran had always believed that was the fair calibration. He was beginning to doubt himself. The 30 minutes started. The recruits moved. 10 minutes in, one of the Oraki recruits stopped to adjust his straps. His legs were working, but his shoulders had hit their limit. 15 minutes in, 2 Keth recruits requested pace reduction. 20 minutes in, Mara was still moving. Same pace, unbroken. "She is not slowing," Dr. Aaron Sell said quietly. "She has not slowed since the exercise began," Velkaran said. "That is not expected." "No!" Dr. Aaron Sell was typing fast on her datapad. Her respiration is elevated but consistent. She is not entering oxygen debt. Her stride has not shortened. She is not favoring any. She stopped. "What?" Velkaran asked. "She is smiling." He looked. She was, not a large smile, not triumphant. Just a small, quiet upward curve of the mouth. Like she was somewhere else. Like she was somewhere she had been before. 30 minutes ended. The recruits stopped. Most of them stood with their hands on their knees or flat against the wall. Mara lowered her pack, rolled her shoulders, looked around the room, then she looked up at the observation rail. She found Velkaren's eyes. She gave a small nod. He did not nod back. He was already walking to the door to find the gravity control panel. "Sir," Cornick said, "you're setting it to 1.8. I'm aware." "That, sir, that's above recommended for a mixed species training group. It's within operational parameters. Only for Keth and Iraqi physiology, sir. For the lighter species will use adaptive support equipment." Velkaren looked at him. "Except for the human, she declines it." Cornack opened his mouth. "Closed it, sir. Should I document this as a deliberate test?" "Document it as a training escalation." "Yes, sir." The recruits were not told the gravity had changed. Most of them knew within seconds. The Iraqi barely reacted. The Keth straightened and adjusted, their posture lowering slightly. The Dravni recruits reached for their optional support belts. Mara looked up at the ceiling, then she looked at her feet. Then she shifted her weight from one foot to the other, like she was testing the floor. Barrow leaned toward her. "Did the room change?" he whispered. "Gravity's heavier," she said. "How can you tell?" "Feels different. You feel gravity changes. My planet has a lot of them. Weather systems. Altitude. You learn to feel it." Barrow stared at her. "That is not a thing. That is not a real thing." "Today's exercise is 500 bodyweight squats," Velkaran announced. Everyone looked at him. Continuous. No stops. No rests. 500. One of the Dravni recruits made a sound. "You will begin now." At 150 squats, the first Dravni recruit sat down on the floor. He was done. At 200, another Keth recruit stopped and stood, his legs shaking. "Recruit," Bill Carahan said, "you have stopped." "Sir, I cannot. You may exit the bay and speak to the medical officer." The Keth recruit left. At 280, Dr. Adest, Arancel, who was back at the observation rail, leaned forward. Mara was still going. Not fast, never fast, just relentlessly paced. "She is treating this like arithmetic, Dr. Mater," Arancel said to herself. "What?" Cornick asked from beside her. "She is counting. I can see her lips. She is counting each repetition." "That's a focus technique." "No, not quite. She is not counting to distract herself from the pain." Dr. Arancel watched carefully. "She is counting to tell herself how far is left. She is negotiating with herself." "That's also a focus technique. It is different. Other species count to avoid thinking about the effort. She is counting through it. She is aware of the effort. She is choosing to continue anyway." Cornick thought about that. "That sounds like it hurts more." "It does," Dr. Arancel said. "That's what I don't understand." 500. Mara stood up straight. 3 other recruits had also finished. All Oraki. They stood like statues, expressions flat, their dense physiology grinding to completion, without theater. Everyone else had stopped between 2 and 400. Velkaran looked at the room. Then he looked at Mara. "Recruit Calloway." "Sir." "How are your legs?" "Tired, sir." "That is all." "Burning. But that's the same thing." He looked at her for a long moment. "What is your homeworld gravity again?" 9.8 meters per second squared, sir. You know that. "And this room is currently at 1.8 standard," she said, "which is about 17.6 meters per second squared." She paused. "You doubled it since yesterday." The room was quiet. "You noticed?" "Yes, sir." "When?" "When I walked in, sir." He stared at her. She stared back. "That will be all for today," he said. That night, Velkaran sat in his office with Dr. Arancel and 2 other faculty members. A xenophysiologist named Dr. Horan Tev, and Commander Strix, the Academy's senior tactical officer. "Show me the data," Commander Strix said. Velkaran showed her. 2 days of performance metrics, gravity response curves, endurance comparison across species. Commander Strix looked at the data for a long time. "This recruit is performing above Keth baseline at 1.8 standard gravity." "Yes. She comes from a world with gravity rated at 0.98 standard," Velkaran said, roughly. "That should mean she is struggling, not that she is competing with Keth recruits." "I know. So what is happening?" Dr. Horantev cleared his throat. I have been looking into human evolution, their world, their history. He pulled up a display. Earth, Class M world, dense atmosphere, varied gravity due to significant terrain variation, moderate electromagnetic activity. That does not explain this? No. But their evolutionary history might. Dr. Horan Tev scrolled through a document. Humans evolved as pursued predators. Silence. They are prey-sized, Commander Strix said. Prey-sized, yes. But their ancient hunting method was not ambush, not burst. They didn't run fast, they ran long. He looked up. They would chase prey for hours, days in some documented accounts, at sustained pace, in significant heat, carrying tools, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Another silence. That is, Commander Strix stopped. Extreme, Dr. Horantev said. That is a very extreme hunting method. It is not used anymore, hasn't been for thousands of years, but the body remembers. He tapped the display. Humans have a higher density of slow-twitch muscle fiber than any other known sapient species. Their cardiac output at sustained effort is disproportionate to their frame. Their ability to dump heat through perspiration is without parallel in known xenobiology. He paused. And they have a neurological pattern we have no real framework for. What pattern? Velkarin asked. Humans can choose to continue when their body is telling them to stop. The room was quiet again. All creatures have a pain response that triggers cessation of activity, Dr. Horantev said. It is a survival mechanism. Stop before you break. But in humans, he shook his head. The mechanism is there. But there appears to be a second system, a volitional override. They can look at the signal from their body saying this is enough and decide to continue anyway. That sounds like self-destruction, Commander Strix said. Sometimes it is. Humans die doing this, regularly, throughout their history. But the ones who survive. He looked at the performance data. The ones who survive are very difficult to stop. Day 3. Belkarin had the gravity set to 2.0 standard. Kornick had filed 3 separate objections in the incident log. Velkarin had acknowledged all 3. The recruits entered the training bay, and the Keth recruits stopped almost immediately. One of them looked at Velkarin. Sir, what is the current gravity setting? 2.0 standard. Sir, that is above. It is within operational parameters for combat simulation environments. The Keth recruit stood very straight. Sir, with respect, this is a significant increase. Yes, sir. Yes, recruit. A long pause. Yes, sir, the recruit finally said, and reached for his support belt. Mara walked in, stopped, looked at the floor again. That small testing shift of her weight. Then she looked at Velkarin. 2.0, sir. You are correct. That's almost double my homeworld gravity. Yes. She nodded slowly. Okay, she said. Just okay. Like he'd told her it was a bit warm outside. From the observation rail, Dr. Aaron Sell made a sound that was somewhere between fascination and distress. Today's training was combat forms, not live sparring. Choreographed combat sequences, load-bearing, full body, designed to develop strength, coordination, and muscle memory simultaneously. At 2.0 standard, the forms were brutal. Recruits were moving slowly, carefully, like they were pushing through water. Mara was not moving slowly. She was not moving fast either. She was moving at the same pace she always moved, that same relentless metronomic rhythm. Barrow was struggling. He was Keth, and his natural gravity was 1.2 standard. This was well above his threshold. He was watching her out of the corner of his eye. He couldn't stop watching her. During a rest break, he crossed to her side of the room. You are not using a support belt, he said. No. It is 2.0. I know. Recruit Saris is using a support belt and Saris ran better than you on day 1. Different kind of challenge. Barrow looked at her. What is wrong with you? She glanced at him. Nothing's wrong with me. There is something wrong with you. No. Normal beings struggle at 2.0. I'm struggling. You don't look like you're struggling. She stopped moving for a second. Barrow. When you're struggling, what do you look like? He blinked his 4 eyes. Slow down. My posture changes. My Right. For me, struggling looks like this. She gestured at herself. Same posture, same pace. This is me working hard. I just don't look different when I do. He stared at her. That is very unsettling. Thanks. The combat forms continued for 90 minutes. At the 60-minute mark, Velkaran increased the gravity again. Not a large increase. 2.1 standard. Just enough to push. A Dravni recruit sat down. An Oriki recruit dropped to one knee. Mara paused mid-movement. Adjusted, continued. From the observation rail, Dr. Horan Tev was speaking quickly into a recording device. Real-time gravitational adaptation, he said quietly. She felt the change. She recalibrated her center of gravity in approximately 2 seconds. She didn't fall. She didn't stagger. She just adjusted. He stopped recording for a moment. I have never seen this outside of species with dedicated gravitational sensory organs. Humans don't have dedicated gravitational sensory organs. He started recording again. They just have everything else. After the session, Commander Strix requested to speak with Mara directly. This was unusual. Commanders didn't speak with first-week recruits. They met in a small briefing room off the main corridor. Commander Strix sat across from her. She was a tall Velthari. Decorated. 3 campaigns. Silver rank insignia. She looked at Mara the way Belkaran had started to look at her. With something that wasn't quite caution, but was getting close. Recruit Calloway. Commander, how are you finding the academy? Mara considered this. The food is better than I expected. Commander Strix blinked. The food? Yes, ma'am. Not the training? The training is hard, but that's what I came for. Commander Strix leaned forward slightly. Recruit. The training is at 2.1 standard gravity. That is a level reserved for advanced combat preparation. You are a first-week recruit from a 0.98 standard world. Yes, ma'am. And you are outperforming Keth recruits. I don't know about that. I'm completing the exercises. Keth recruits are not completing the exercises. They're doing better on bursts. I'm slow. You are not slow, recruit. I'm not fast either. You are consistent. Mara looked at her. That's what we do, she said. Commander Strix sat back. What do you mean? Mara was quiet for a moment. Humans, she said. We're not the fastest. We're not the strongest. We don't have natural armor. We don't have echolocation or compound eyes or thermal sensing. She looked at her hands. We're kind of medium at everything, except for one thing, which is, we don't stop. Commander Strix was very still. We chase things until they fall over, Mara said. We build things over centuries until they work. We run until we get there, wherever there is. It's just, she shrugged. It's what we are. Day 5. The Academy had never had a situation quite like this. Velkaran had a meeting with Dr. Turin, Horantev, Dr. Aaron Sell, Commander Strix, and 2 people he hadn't seen before. They were from the Galactic Defense Council's Biological Assessment Division. Someone had forwarded his incident reports. One of the new people, a short, efficient-looking Velthari named Administrator Pren, placed a datapad on the table. You have a recruit performing at this level in week 1? Correct. At 2.1 standard gravity. As of this morning, yes. And what is the current plan? Velkaran looked at her. I intend to keep increasing the gravity. To what end? To find her limit. Administrator Pren looked at the data, and if she doesn't have one, everything has a limit. That's true. She set the datapad down. But the question is whether we find her limit before we find the limit of our equipment. A pause. Our training bay gravity field maxes at 3.5 standard, Velkaran said. I know. You think she could reach that? Administrator Pren looked at him steadily. I think we should find out. Day 7. The other recruits had been moved to a secondary bay. Mara was alone in the main training bay. She had been told this was an individual assessment session. She didn't seem surprised. She walked in, looked around the empty room, and looked up at the observation rail. Velkaran was there. Dr. Horantev, Dr. Aaron Sell, Commander Strix, Administrator Pren, 2 others. Mara nodded up at them. Higher than yesterday, she called up. Belkaran leaned to the microphone. 2.5 standard, she nodded. What am I doing today? He looked at the exercise roster he'd prepared. Maximum effort run. Full bay. Continuous. 40 minutes. She rolled her neck. She rolled her shoulders. She shook out her hands. Okay, she said. Just okay. She ran. The running was not beautiful. It never was with Mara. She didn't move with the fluid efficiency of a Dravni or the powerful surges of a Keth. She moved like something grinding through resistance, like something that had decided to go somewhere and was going there regardless of what the universe thought about it. At 2.5 standard, the observation team had to check the gravity calibration twice. Both times it came back nominal. At 10 minutes, Dr. Erin Sell was running her own calculations. Her cardiovascular output has actually increased since the gravity was raised, she said. Increased? Orentev looked over. Her heart rate went up, yes. But her stride output didn't drop proportionally. She is compensating by working harder, not by reducing output. That should cause rapid oxygen debt. It should, but look at her respiration. Dr. Erin Sell pointed at the monitors. She is cycling oxygen at a rate I've never seen outside of species with secondary respiratory systems. She doesn't have secondary respiratory systems? No. She has one pair of lungs and she is running them like an engine. At 25 minutes, Administrator Pren said quietly, "Raise it." Velkaren looked at her. 2, 3.0. In the middle of the run? Yes. He hesitated. Commander Strix said nothing. He raised it. The field shifted. Below them, Mara stumbled. Just once. One step that wasn't right, one moment of the floor being heavier than her legs expected. Then she straightened. She didn't stop. She ran. There, Dr. Horentev said softly. The adaptation, real time. She felt it. She corrected. Nobody else spoke. 40 minutes. She stopped. She put her hands on her knees. She breathed. Deep, long, controlled. After 30 seconds, she stood up. She looked up at the observation rail. Her face was red. Her shirt was soaked through. Her legs had a fine tremor that was visible even from above. Was that what you needed? She called up. Belkaran looked at his datapad. He looked at the performance numbers. He looked at Mara. He leaned to the microphone. Recruit, are you injured? No, sir. Are you certain? A small pause. My legs are going to hate me tomorrow. That is not an injury. No, sir. Could you do that again? An even smaller pause. Not right now, but eventually. Yes, sir. Eventually. He set down the microphone. Commander Strix was looking at the data. She was very quiet for a very long time. Then she said, she could have gone higher. What? Belkaran said. She was not at her limit. She finished the exercise and asked if that was what we needed. She was thinking about us. She was not thinking about her own survival. Commander Strix looked at him. She was not done. We were done. That evening, Belkaran sat in his office alone. He pulled up his original intake note. Fragile. Monitor closely. Do not crush. He deleted it. He stared at the blank field for a long time. Then he typed, does not crush. 3 weeks later. The intake group had solidified into something that worked. Barrow had stopped looking at Mara with wariness. Now he looked at her with something quieter. Something that was, he admitted privately, very close to respect. One evening in the common area, he sat down beside her with his meal tray. I have been thinking, he said. That's good. About persistence hunting. She looked up from her food. You've been reading. The Xenobiology Bulletin released a report about humans. I was mentioned in it. It said I was observed expressing confusion at Recruit Calloway's adaptation capacity. She smiled. What did you think of the report? I thought it was accurate. He was quiet for a moment. It says your species chased prey for days, on foot, until the animal died of exhaustion. A long time ago, yeah. And you think this is why you can do what you do? Partly. What is the other part? She considered this. I think part of it is just deciding, she said. You know that moment when something is hard and you can either stop or not stop? Yes, humans just decide not to stop. It's not always smart. Sometimes it's actually the worst thing you can do. But it's kind of built in. She looked at her food. The universe has a lot of hard things in it. We decided a long time ago that hard wasn't enough to stop us. Barrow was quiet. That is either very brave or very irrational. Yeah, she said. It's a bit of both. Week 6. The training had stabilized at 2.8 standard for the main group. Mara was still the only recruit not using support equipment. She was also, by this point, something the Academy had no real category for. She was not the best recruit. Saris was the best technical combatant. 2 of the Oriki recruits had better raw strength numbers. Barrow had faster reaction time. But there was a category the Academy hadn't needed before. Velkaran called it, in his formal assessment notes, sustained capability under compounding adverse conditions. Mara was the only recruit in the category. She was, by a large margin, the highest scorer. The final assessment of the training cycle came at week 8. A live simulation. A full combat scenario in the station's simulation wing, variable gravity, variable terrain, variable opposition. It was designed to break you. That was the point. Find where you break. Fix it. That's training. The recruits went in one at a time. Most came out between 30 and 60 minutes in, exhausted, some injured, all looking like they'd been somewhere very difficult. Barrow came out at 52 minutes. He had a cut above his eye and he was breathing hard. He sat down on the bench outside the simulation wing and didn't speak for 10 minutes. Then he said, "She's still in there." "What?" the Dradney recruit Saris said. "Calloway. She went in before me. She's still in." Saris checked the display. 1 recruit still active in the simulation. The scenario's clock was at 1 hour 14 minutes. The previous record for a first cycle recruit was 1 hour 7 minutes, set 12 years ago by an Oriki recruit who had reportedly wept for 3 minutes before going in. "How?" Saris said. "I don't know," Barrow said. They watched the clock. 1:20, 1:30. At 1:36, the simulation door opened. Mara walked out. She didn't look victorious. She didn't look triumphant. She looked like she'd been somewhere very, very far away. And she'd come back. She sat down on the bench. She leaned her elbows on her knees. She breathed. Barrow looked at her. "How far did you get?" She looked at him. "I completed the scenario." Nobody spoke. "Nobody completes the scenario," Saris said. "It's not designed to be completed. It's designed to find your breaking point." "I know," Mara said. "So how did you?" "I just kept going." "That's not an explanation." She was quiet for a moment. "You know what the hardest part was," she said. "Not the last 10 minutes. Not the hardest section of the course." She looked at her hands. "The hardest part was about 40 minutes in, when my body was telling me very clearly that I should stop. Very clearly. Like a loud signal. Everything hurts. Stop now, you've done enough." "So what did you do?" "I had a conversation." "With who?" "With myself." She looked up. "I said, yeah, this hurts. And I'm going to finish anyway." And then I did. Barrow stared at her. "You had a conversation with yourself?" "Yep." "And that worked?" "It usually does." He thought about this for a long time. "That is," he said finally, "genuinely the strangest thing I have ever heard." "Probably. But it worked." It worked. The graduation ceremony for the first cycle was held in the main atrium of Velthari Academy. Commander Strix stood at the front. 41 graduates. 1 had left in week 2, which was considered excellent retention. She gave the standard address. Then she added something she had not added before. This cycle produced the first recorded completion of the final simulation in the Academy's history. The recruit who completed it set a new record for sustained combat performance under compounding adverse conditions. She did not do this because she was stronger, faster, or better equipped than her peers. Commander Strix paused. She did this because she decided to, and she did not change her mind. She looked at Mara. "That is the most dangerous kind of soldier in the galaxy. Not the strongest, not the fastest, the one who does not stop." Afterward, in the corridor, Velkaran found Mara. He had something he wanted to say. He stood there for a moment. He'd been an instructor for 19 years. He'd broken recruits for 19 years. He had never looked at a first-cycle graduate the way he was looking at her. "Instructor," she said. "Recruit." He paused. "Graduate," she agreed. She agreed. He was quiet. I wrote in your intake file, he said, that you were fragile. I know. I saw it. You saw it. First day. I went through my file. I saw the note. He stared at her. And what did you think? She tilted her head slightly, the same way she had tilted it on day one, when he'd told her she would likely injure herself. I thought, she said, that I'd let the training speak for itself. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he did something he had not done to a first cycle graduate in 19 years. He nodded, not the small, dismissive nod of an instructor acknowledging a recruit. The slow, deliberate nod of someone acknowledging an equal. You'll be back next cycle, he said, as assistant instructor. She blinked. Sir, you heard me. I'm a first cycle graduate. It's not standard, he agreed. Nothing about you is standard. He turned to leave. Be here at fourth bell, we have a new intake. He walked away. She stood in the corridor for a moment. Then she smiled. Not a small smile this time, a real one. 3 months later, a new intake of 44 recruits stood in the training bay. 7 species. They looked at the 2 instructors at the front of the room. Bill Carahan they recognized as Dravni. Senior, decorated, 7 feet of quiet authority. The other one they didn't recognize. She was small, shorter than most of them. A species they didn't have files on. This is Instructor Calloway, Velcaran said. You will address her as instructor or sir. A Keth recruit in the front row looked at her, then looked at Velcaran. Sir, the Keth recruit said carefully. What species is she? Human. The Keth recruit looked back at her. Mara looked back at him. She was not smiling. She was very calm. Sir, the Keth recruit said. Are humans a warrior species? Velcarolyn looked at Mara. Mara looked at the recruit. We're persistence hunters, she said. We don't fight fast. We don't hit hard. She paused. We just don't stop. The Keth recruit processed this. Is that dangerous? She tilted her head. The gravity in this bay is currently at 1.4 standard, she said. By week 3, it will be at 2.5. You will be tired in ways you have never been tired before. You will want to stop. She looked at the room. All of them. And I will be right there with you. Doing every single thing I ask you to do, not because I have to. She let that sit for a second. Because that's what we do. Nobody spoke. The new recruits looked at each other. Then they looked back at her. The Keth recruit in the front row straightened his spine. Slowly the room followed. Somewhere in the Galactic Defense Council's biological assessment files there is a report, filed by Administrator Prin, reviewed by Commander Strix, stamped and archived in the Restricted Species Assessment section. The title is dry and bureaucratic, Non-Standard Sapient Physiological Capability, Case Study, Human Subject, Belthari Academy Intake Cycle 44. But the last line of the executive summary is not dry. It reads, Recommendation, do not place humans in scenarios designed to find their breaking point. They will find yours first.